I'd like to call to order the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education. It is Tuesday, November 1st, 2021, and we're meeting in a blended format with some of us here at Casco Bay High School and others of us joining via Zoom. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair. Ms. Bondo.
Présence.
Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better.
Here.
Ms. Billiou. Ms. Bryden.
Here.
Mr. Youssef. Ms. Lentz.
Here.
Mr. Grant.
Here.
Ms. Aslami. Ms. Ellis. Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Mr. Alsamirli.
Here.
Ms. Santiago. Ms. Diu and Chair Figdor.
Here.
Let's see, Ms. Ellis is joining us now.
And I know that Ms. Diu is currently under the weather, and Mr. Youssef is traveling today and will join us at our next meeting. So with that, I'd like to invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Portland Public Schools recognizes the original inhabitants of the land on which our city and schools stand, the Wolastoqiyik, or Maliseet, Micmac, Penobscot, and Passamaquoddy tribes, known collectively as the Wabanaki Confederacy, or people of the Dawnland. We are honored to have Wabanaki children among our students today, and as a district, we are committed to making the past, present, and future of Wabanaki peoples visible in our schools and our classrooms. We're going to start tonight's business meeting with a public comment on any issue that we're not voting on tonight. So if there are any members of the public that would like to address the board, you'll have 3 minutes, and you can either come forward to the podium or use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. And if you can begin by introducing yourself. Don't see anyone coming forward, and I don't see any hands up. And give folks 30 seconds or so. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and move right into the report of the chair. I wanted to give everyone an update on our superintendent search committee. The 13-member search committee, which includes 8 members of the public and 5 board members, held its first meeting on October 24th. The board's goal is to hire a new superintendent by May 14th of next year to allow for a smooth transition for Superintendent Batana's replacement, who will start on July 1st, 2023. At the first meeting of the search committee, we agreed on a rubric to evaluate 6 proposals that we received from search firms that responded to our RFP seeking assistance in the search process. And the search committee's next meeting is this Thursday, November 3rd at 6 p.m. And at that meeting, we're going to review our evaluations of the search firm proposals using our rubric and agree on a firm or firms to move forward in the process. The public is invited to attend this hybrid meeting, which is being held at central office in the Casco Bay room, but there's also a remote option for joining. And there's information, including the agenda and documents, in board docs. And if anyone would like additional information, you can always reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to update you, answer questions, or send you information. And then second, I wanted to encourage everyone to vote. There's a lot on our ballot this year, including 3 school board elections and question 5, the amendment to Portland's charter that will improve public education in our city. This Thursday is the last day to vote absentee at City Hall. And on election day, next Tuesday, polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that concludes my report. And now we're going to move on to the report of from our students. And today we have Danny McLaughlin of PAS. So Danny, the floor is yours.
As the year gets on, it's been an exciting 2 months at PAS. On September 13th, PAS had its program advisory meeting where all programs met with their program advisory groups to discuss each program's goals and needs. On the 22nd, PAS had its open house with amazing attendance from both parents and students. On the 23rd, PAS had its Harvest Festival where students got to try an assortment of different apple treats and use an apple press outside by the greenhouse. The festival was put on by the landscape program for the students and staff at PAS. In October, PAS held a college fair with 22 post-secondary schools attending, some of which included SMCC, Maine, Husson University. Finally, PAS had its first field trip of the year to Maine Construction Career Day. Hopefully many more to come. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Danny, and hurrah for field trips once again. Okay, excellent. And with that, we're going to move to the superintendent for his report. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Chair. Last week, we completed certification of our official enrollment. Our certified numbers showed a total enrollment of 6,424 students, which is almost exactly the same as last year's certified number, which was 6,430. This obviously is good news after a couple years of decreasing enrollments. Full staffing continues to be a struggle. We're planning to host a second hiring fair on November 14th at Central Office. And we plan to make these sessions part of our monthly routine for the time being. And I want to recognize our Executive Director of Diversity, Equity, and Belonging, Barrett Wilkinson, for organizing those sessions. The first one, as you may recall, yielded a handful of ed tech and substitute candidates. So we're doing it again in the hopes that we will continue to be able to plug away at our vacancies. On a positive note, we received confirmation last week that the Department of Education is moving forward with their anticipated program that will pay individuals working as educational technicians in specialized programs such as our District Breathe, our Life Skills Program Bridge, and our Autism Spectrum program Beach, an additional $2,500 if they participate in a 5-week course. I'm hopeful that we will be able to leverage this for recruitment and retention in these programs, and I'm grateful to Commissioner Macon and her team for once again listening intently to school district needs and taking helpful steps to partner with us to solve those challenges. In other DOE-related news, I would again like to appreciate the DOE's recognition of the wonderful work that is happening in our Portland Adult Education Center, the largest adult education provider in Maine. Last week, the DOE announced that PAE would be the recipient of 3 grants for just under $1.5 million to increase the reach and intensity of the invaluable services that PAE provides to help Portland residents access their full potential. The 3 programs are the Extended Language Access Project, which will enable Portland adult education to extend English language learning opportunities to a greater number of students who are disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic through innovatively addressing the wait list, expanding English instruction, and addressing barriers to participation. And that is for a total award of $489,000. The second one is the English and Digital Skills Integration Program, which will increase relevance and accessibility of English language acquisition and workplace preparedness through improving remote instruction, improving access to loaner devices and hotspots, and integrating a multi-pronged approach to digital skills building at all levels of the organization. So through Digital Skills Lab, targeted workshops, and digital skills integration into traditional ESOL classes. And that is for $490,000. And finally, the Portland Adult Education's Healthcare Pathways Program, which will create English language acquisition and workforce training opportunities specifically in the healthcare industry for individuals who were disproportionately affected by COVID-19, including people of color, individuals with low incomes, low English literacy levels, and women who may also be unemployed or underemployed or currently out of the labor force. So Portland Adult Education will work closely with healthcare employers to design and implement programming and connect students to employment opportunities. This program is funded for a total of $500,000. So again, this is excellent news for Portland Adult Ed, and we're really excited about the potential for these three programs to extend and intensify the services that PAE already provides. I would also like to extend my appreciation to the Foundation for Portland Public Schools for their recently announced 14th annual Teacher Grants Program Cycle, where 76 teachers, ed techs, librarians, and others will share grants totaling almost $60,000 that will benefit thousands of students from pre-K through Portland Adult Education, serving 15 schools across the Portland Public Schools. Support for the 2022 Equity Innovation Teacher Grants came from Envirologics via their Ensign Bickford Foundation, the Nellie Mae Education Foundation, J.B. Brown and Sons, Bangor Savings Banks, Coffee by Design, Town and Country Federal Credit Union, Northeast Bank, Camp Alsing, Kaposa Floor Covering Center, Clark Insurance, Machia Savings Bank, and many individual contributors. We recently announced our continued participation in the USDA Child and Adult Care Food Program for our after-school students. The program offers students who take part in after-school programs in a qualifying school a nutritious after-school snack that we call Super Snack. Super Snacks consist of all 5 components of the meal program. The district's food service department is working with the City of Portland's Recreation Division, after-school program and the Learning Works program to make this snack available to their participating students. And we also do provide it for student athletes where it's in a qualifying school. The 22-23 school year marks the 5th year that the district has participated in this program. Finally, on October 19th and 22nd, over 70 students from 3 high schools took part in the Seal of Biliteracy testing. Currently, 26 seniors are on track to earn the seal in 12 different languages. So congratulations to them and their teachers and families for prioritizing building world language competency. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Mr. Superintendent. All right. Don't see any questions from the board, so we're going to move right into the report of the secretary. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve today, minutes from both of our October meetings. So consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of October 11th, 2022. Is there a motion? Mr. Burke, seconded by Ms. Russell-Better. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, seeing none, I'm going to move to public comment. So this is public comment specifically on our meeting minutes from our October 11th meeting. If any members of the public would like to address the board regarding our minutes, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you'll have up to 3 minutes. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, please indicate whether you support approving the meeting minutes from our October 11th, 2022 meeting. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair, Ms. Vondo,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Ms. Russell-Better,
Yes.
Ms. Bryden,
Yes.
Ms. Lentz,
Yes.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Alzamili,
Yes.
and Chair Figdor.
Yes, so the minutes were unanimously approved with our students voting with the majority. And now we're on to consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of our October 18th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion? Board Member Burke, seconded by Ms. Russell-Better. Are there any questions on this motion? Seeing none, I'm going to move to public comment. This is public comment on our meeting minutes from October 18th. I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to close public comment and move to board discussion. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none. By roll call vote, please indicate whether you support approving the meeting minutes from October 18th, 2022. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair. Ms. Bondo,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better,
Yes.
Ms. Bryden. Looks like she's frozen.
Oh, she's wrong.
Ms. Lentz,
Yes.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Abstain.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Alzamili,
Yes.
and Chair Figdor.
Yes. So our minutes were unanimously approved, with 2 of our students voting with the majority and 1 student abstaining. And I'm just wondering if we have Miss Bryden again. Maybe she got.
Yes, yep, I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
Sure.
Okay, so now we are on to updates from our committees, which is something we haven't had the opportunity to do in quite some time because we have had such data-heavy board focuses that have taken up a lot of time on our agenda. We don't have a board focus today, so we are going to move through each of our committees, and our committee chairs are going to update the full board and members of the public about their work. So we are going to start tonight with Board Member Burke, who's the chair of the Finance, Personnel, and Operations Committee.
Thanks, Chair. In our Finance, Personnel, and Operations Committee, we've had a focus including our audit, corrective actions, Finance Department staffing, getting ongoing updates from our CEO, Terry Long, in particular. We've had robust conversations about the lead tests that we received back last year and what has been going on in our facilities in terms of retesting and our scheduling there. We've discussed the superintendent search process, which has now been through the appointments committee and sits with the superintendent search committee, which met for the first time last week and meets again this week, as Chair Figdor has touched upon tonight already. We also have walked through our capital improvement projects in great detail to get a grasp on where we are with already funded projects and what we are likely to see as a request from staff for board decision for upcoming CIP budgets that we'll work on later in our process. And then our next meeting is Thursday, November 10th at 7:00 on Zoom, and the public is welcome to attend virtually as well.
Thank you so much, Board Member Burke. Are there any questions for Board Member Burke or the Finance Committee? Okay, I don't see any. We will move on to Ms. Russell Better, who is the chair of our Curriculum and Policy Committee.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to be able to share a little update about the work of the Policy Curriculum Committee over the past few months. So we've had a new configuration of continuing and new board members the last few months. So that's been great to kind of have new perspectives and continuing with some of our big pieces of work. You'll see 5 policy updates on the agenda tonight for first reads. So those are ranging from questioning and search of students to workplace bullying. And we passed the child abuse and drug and alcohol policy revisions through the full board last month. So those were 2 recent pieces of work. And as far as what's on our current agendas and upcoming agendas, policy IMB, which is about teaching about controversial and sensitive topics. That is in the period of, we have gotten some feedback from students about that, and the committee is planning to move the policy forward through our committee over the next few months. So with the plans of early next year, hoping to bring that to the full board. And then also 2 other pieces are recently, the high school alignment work has been tasked, the full board tasked that to the Policy Curriculum Committee. So that's going to be a big piece of work in the next year. Staff have been identified to lead this work along with student and parent members are being selected currently. So we'll get an update on the process of that at our next meeting. And just also wanted to highlight that we'll be continuing work on policy ACAB, which is staff harassment in the coming months. And our next meeting is November 22nd at 6:00 via Zoom, and certainly the public is welcome to attend. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ms. Russell-Better. Are there any questions for Ms. Russell-Better or the Policy and Curriculum Committee? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to Ms. Bondo, who is the chair of our Public Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Chair. So the Public Affairs meets the last Monday of every month. So our focus is to improve the communication between families and the district. So what we have in October, so we had a feedback around the reimagining family engagement session, which happened during September, to understand what went well and what we need to improve for the next session. So, and then we are building some of the calendars. This is the idea came from one of our colleagues to have a calendar where we have all different events from the district, like the parent university and everything else. So we can have a annual calendar. So community members, they can follow easily and we can be able to attend on time. So what we have done to improve the communication. So we have built some of the conversation engagement with the communities, with staff and some of the students. So the first one we had, it was on Saturday, the 22nd October. We had the one with the constituent. It was a coffee. Then we share with the constituent. It was on the Hearing Oaks. So I just want to really have a fully appreciation with all board member who were able to join us. So we have a great conversation early morning in the Derek Oaks place where we met with constituents and community members who came, and I really appreciate also superintendent join us with some of the staff. So we have a conversation around different aspects of the district, families and community members about any concern they had. So it was a great attempt to really building that collaboration and approach between the board and the community outside of the context that we have every session. So we had also with the staff, it was on the 24th October, we have with the staff. So we are able to listen to some of the staff, but we didn't have a good feedback, so we didn't have a good turnout on the staff. Then we tried to figure out what was the reason and how we can improve. So next time we can have more staff attending and listen to them to understand what different issues they may have and how we can make it much better. So the last one is going to be with the students. So the first school then we're going to go meet the students is going to be during high school. So it's going to be November 3rd. It's going to be in person. So we just inviting other board members who want to join us with a conversation with the student. They are all welcome to come and join us. So our next meeting is going to be on November 28th. Thank you. And I conclude my report.
Thank you, Ms. Bondo. And maybe I want to recognize the work of the Public Affairs Committee because it's the most different from our other committees in that I know Ms. Bondo and the rest of the committee is really digging in to figure out how to engage in a more meaningful way and more continuous way, to have additional kind of channels for dialogue with all aspects of our community, different aspects are whether, from students to staff to community members to families. So I want to thank Ms. Bondo for leading this work, and to the full committee for really diving in and acknowledging our need to develop additional ways of communication and connection, and to be ever more transparent and to feel like to give people more of a voice into our work as well. So thank you so much, Ms. Bondo. And then our final committee is our appointments committee, and Mr. Youssef is, as I mentioned, traveling today. And he asked if I could do the update, although I also want to see if Ms. Bondo or Ms. Lentz would prefer to give the update as the other appointment committee members. If not, I'm prepared to do it. Yeah. Okay. Ms. Lentz, is that okay with you too? Okay. So the appointments committee launched a recruitment questionnaire in early September both for members of the public to participate in our superintendent search committee as well as our participatory budgeting committee. For the superintendent search, it was open through October 3rd, and it yielded a total of 55 community applicants. The appointments committee reviewed those applications on October 7th and developed a slate of candidates that the board approved on October 11th. At that October 11th meeting, the board also approved an amendment to the original resolution establishing the search committee to add an 8th community member to the superintendent search committee from Portland Adult Education, just recognizing that we had not done that, had not been intentional about that, unfortunately, to begin with. And so just ensuring that we did have a community member from Portland Adult Education. The appointments committee then met virtually to review the PAE, the Portland Adult Education applicants, and consulted with the director of Portland Adult Education and decided on a recommendation. And at the October 18th board meeting, the board unanimously approved that recommendation. And that's the update of the appointments committee, which doesn't have another meeting scheduled because the committee meets on an as-needed basis. So are there any questions about the appointments committee work? Okay, so thank you everyone for updating us. I guess thank you to the committee chairs for updating us on the work that you are leading us on. And next, we're going to move to consent items. Mr. Superintendent, will you please speak to this agenda item?
Yes, Chair. Under Board Policy KCD, the school board accepts by unanimous consent contributions made to the school district as required by the policy. All the donations are listed in the board agenda under this item. Our practice is for each donor to receive a written contribution acknowledgement expressing our heartfelt gratitude as well as for their tax purposes. And I would like to thank the generous contributors to the Portland Public Schools who have made donations of durable goods, goods of substantial value and historical or commemorative significance. And in this case, there is one. Talbot Elementary School received winter jackets for students from Sophie Ranta of Yarmouth. And as always, we thank our contributors for their generosity and support, and particularly Ms. Ranta in this on this occasion.
Excellent. So now we are on to new business, and we have a lot of first reads tonight. I want to mention at the outset that at the conclusion of our business meeting, we are going to have a workshop on all of the first reads. So, and then at our meeting, our next meeting on November 15th, we will consider and discuss and are slated to then pass these policies. So I'm going to start with first read of policy DJ, purchasing. First read of policy BCB, board conflict of interest. First read of policy JIH, questioning and searching of students. First read of policy GBN, family medical leave. And first read of policy ACAF, workplace bullying. So those are the policies that we'll discuss at the conclusion of our business meeting in our workshop. Next, we're on to consideration and action to ratify state revolving renovation fund applications for the Americans with Disabilities projects at several schools. Is there a motion? Ms. Bondo, seconded by Board Member Grant.
Use my first name.
Old habits. Okay, so Mr. Superintendent, will you please speak to this motion?
The School Revolving Renovation Fund, lovingly known as SRRF, offers funding to districts for projects in 4 areas under Category 1. And those are projects that deal with Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA compliance upgrades, structural roof repairs, indoor air quality improvements, and hazardous material abatement. The fund provides a 0% loan to be paid back over 5 to 10 years and designates 30% of the principal to be forgiven. So it's basically a grant for the 30% plus 0% loan for the remainder. The maximum loan is capped at $1 million per priority per school building within any 5-year period. In January of 2020, Portland Public Schools received funding from the Maine Department of Education under the FY20 ADA School Revolving Renovation Fund applications for a series of ADA improvements. Because, as you can see by the timeline, that happened just as the pandemic was starting, DOE generously granted an extension in August of 2021 through August of 2022. We procured design services and went out to bid on those projects last year, but in the current climate for construction, we received no qualified bids. However, we still did complete some of the work that were envisioned under the ADA approval for the SRRF, including door hardware across the district and chair lifts at Deering High School. We requested a second extension in August of 2022, but that was denied. And instead, staff with the Maine Department of Education Office of School Facilities suggested that we reapply in the current SRRF application cycle. And that application is for the work that was in the original projects that had not already been completed and funded. So the stuff that I described earlier. It is the Maine DOE's intent to publish the final priority list on January of 2023 and issue certificates of eligibility by the beginning of February. So this coming January and February. Applications under the Maine Department of Education's FY23 School Revolving Renovation Project applications were due no later than yesterday. And that's why we're here. Because we contracted with an outside firm to help develop the applications, they were unfortunately not completed until after the October 18th board meeting. And so in order for us to meet the deadline for submission, which was, as I noted yesterday, we submitted the applications without following the usual two-step approval process, and therefore we're asking you to ratify the submission. I did discuss this with Board Chair Figdor, and so she was aware and supportive of this process so that we could meet that deadline. So just to summarize, and you have the information in your packets, the FY 2023 SRRF project submission is for 88 projects at 6 of our schools. And as I mentioned, there's a summary in the board packet as well as the complete application for each project. It's important to note that this program with the Department of Education rarely funds any projects that weren't under this priority 1 health, safety, and compliance with life safety issues. So we're relatively confident that with a number of health and safety related projects that we have in our 5-year plan, and these 6 projects are submissions of that, we believe that we're well positioned to secure a share of the $49 million in state funding that is available this year. And so we ask for your ratification.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Are there questions on the motion?
And Tamara Sweeney, our Assistant Director for Facilities, is in the meeting virtually, and she can also help me to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Russell-Better.
Thank you, Chair. You might have said the superintendent, but did you say anything about the time frame of like the decision being made?
In January, they will know, and if we're funded, we'll have the certificate to do the projects on February 1st is the goal. And because we already have the specifications that were built out for the bids that went out last year, we have to do very little to change those and should be in a good position to get them out into the out into the construction world at a good time in early February.
Okay, thank you.
Hopeful.
Ms. Bondo.
I just have a clarification. Those are we're going to do any renovation just to maintain some of those aspects?
These are bringing our schools up to code with ADA issues ramps, things, elevators, door handles, things along those lines. So it's bringing us into compliance with ADA. I don't know, Tamara, do you have a easy sort of summary that I think there is a 1.5 page summary of all of the projects in the board packet as well as the applications. So that will give you an idea of specifically what those would follow.
So is everything is by school, right? So we have, I see Casco Bay, some during high school. Portland High School.
Yeah, and King Middle School, Lyman Moore Middle School, Portland High School,
Right.
and Talbot are the projects.
So the only elementary school is just Talbot, right?
Talbot, yes. And I believe what is that? Is that the ADA bathrooms?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
The document that summarizes the projects is entitled FY23 ADA SRF Narratives.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Chair.
Are there other questions on the motion? Okay, I don't see any other questions from the board, so I'm going to move to public comment. So this is public comment on specifically on this motion, which is to ratify state revolving fund renovation applications for ADA projects at several different schools. If you're a member of the public and you would like to address the board, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you'll have 3 minutes. I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and we are going to move to board discussion. Is there any board discussion? All right, seeing none, by roll call vote, please indicate whether you support ratifying the state revolving fund applications for Americans with Disability projects at several schools. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair. Ms. Bondo,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better,
Yes.
Ms. Bryden,
Yes.
Ms. Lentz,
Yes.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Alzamili,
Yes.
and Chair Figdor.
Yes, so the motion is unanimously approved with our students voting with the majority. And next we're on to consideration and action to transfer $65,000 from the facility maintenance to the transportation and buses in order to fund a deficit in the state category of transportation and buses. Is there a motion? Ms. Russell Better, seconded by Board Member Burke. Mr. Superintendent, will you please speak to this motion?
Yes. Excuse me 1 second. Yes. So this is an annual event where at the end of the budget cycle, we come back to the board to make any transfers that are required in order to have our budget be able to close. After reviewing our budget to actual data for FY22, we saw that there was the need to transfer a total of $65,000 to fund a budget deficit in one state cost center category. And this requires board approval in order to comply with the board policy on transfer of funds, which is School Board Policy DIC, and that limits administrative authority of such transfers to $50,000 per category. Transfers greater than $50,000 require board approval. So this one obviously is a little bit higher than $50,000. I think it's important, particularly for new board members, to understand that the board policy goes beyond state law. For reference, state law allows transfers from voter expenditure category of up to 5% of that cost centers category without referendum approval. And these cost center categories are the 11 state defined budget categories, which are posted for referendum and are shown annually in our budget. The transfer proposed in this memo is under the 5% cap. But it is our board policy that requires that it's if it's more than $50,000, the board exercise its fiduciary responsibility and grant the approval. So we're seeking approval for this one transfer in order to fund a deficit in transportation and buses. As I noted, it would transfer $75,000 from facilities maintenance to transportation and buses, and the budget deficit in transportation and buses is largely attributed to a substantial need for contractual services, for special education and homeless student transportation over the course of the last year, which resulted in higher than anticipated costs. And our budget director, Miranda Fasulo, is also available to answer any questions that you might have, but otherwise we're asking for approval of this transfer.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Superintendent. Are there questions on the motion? Yes, Board Member Grant.
Just a quick question. So the money's coming out of a different channel that had a surplus for the year.
We're just moving one of the category that had additional money that went into the reserve. So it reduces reserves.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Grant. Okay, Board Member Bondo, please go ahead.
So when we offset the deficit here, when we transfer from our reserve, are we anticipating some of the costs related on the forward? I mean, are we coming back to normal, or are we going to expect some of those needs? Because when we see what happened, so what we have learned, and we anticipate some of the costs going forward.
Yeah. Just to be clear, this is last year's budget.
Yes.
So it's not anything having to do with the current year.
Yes.
And I don't know this off the top of my head, but I think Miranda may. I believe that we increased the contractual budget for transportation for this year, if I recall correctly.
We did. I don't recall exactly by how much, but we did increase it for FY 23. So we should be in better shape.
Okay. So we have a window, right?
So in other words, we anticipate that we budgeted enough in this year's budget to be able to pick up whatever additional costs we were foreseeing for this year.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Board Member Bondo.
And maybe it would be helpful to add for context that this is, again, I don't know that we've had to do much of this in the last couple of years, but I know, in the past that we've had many of these transfers from, one line to another where we've underspent in some category and overspent in another. So I do think that it is a tribute to, our staff's work to get a good handle on where our budget is going to land, where we really haven't had many of these. We have been obviously aided by the pandemic, where we've, underspent in a significant number of categories. So I don't recall what we came back for last year. I think we may have come back for some special education out of district placements, if I recall correctly. But, we have not had a large number of transfers to do at the end of the year.
Excellent. Are there any other questions on this motion? Okay, I'm going to move to public comment. If there's any members of the public that would like to comment on this motion, which is to transfer $65,000 from our facilities maintenance to transportation and buses, this is your opportunity, and please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom or come forward to the podium. And I do not see any hands up. So I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and move to board discussion. Is there any board discussion? I'll just say that the highlight for me of this meeting is to see Miranda. So welcome back to our meetings, Miranda. I'm so happy to see you. And I look forward to the next budget season with you. So thank you for all you're doing. I know you've been there behind the scenes, so deeply appreciative of all of your work.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vigdor. It's very nice to see you as well, and others, and good to be back.
Excellent. Okay, if there isn't any further discussion by roll call vote, please indicate whether you support transferring $65,000 from facilities and maintenance to transportation and buses in order to fund a deficit in the state category of transportation and buses. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair. Ms. Bondo,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better,
Yes.
Ms. Bryden,
Yes.
Ms. Lentz,
Yes.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Alzamili, and Chair Figdor.
Yes, so the motion is unanimously approved with our students voting with the majority, and we are on to personnel items. Consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed, election of 1 year only teachers. And is there a motion? Let's first start with that. Ms. Bondo, seconded by Ms. Russell Better. Thank you. All right, I see that
We have a
Richard
new-
Morris. Yeah.
No.
No.
So I am pleased to introduce Chris St. Louis, our new HR Operations Director. So this is a huge departure, everybody. It's no longer Barb coming up. And Chris, let me tell you, this is the earliest that, this has ever happened. So you picked a good one to be here. Chris St. Louis is our new director. As I mentioned, when we did introductions at the last meeting, when we talked about the work that we were doing around our human capital work. And so Chris was in the department and he has stepped into the leadership role. So Chris, welcome and take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So tonight you're being asked to approve the superintendent's recommendation to hire 7 educators. You'll be asked to vote in these educators in 2 separate groups. The first vote will be to approve the 4 1-year only contract teachers. And then the second vote will be to approve the 3 regular educator hires. With that, I will turn the mic back over to the board chair for board discussion and questions.
Thank you so much, Chris, and welcome. So great to meet you. Okay, are there questions on this motion? Seeing none, and there's no public comment on personnel items, we're going to move to board discussion. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, please indicate whether you approve the personnel items listed, election of 1 year only teachers. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair, Ms. Bondo,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better,
Yes.
Ms. Bryden,
Yes.
Ms. Lentz,
Yes.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Alzamili,
Yes.
and Chair Figdor.
Yes, so the motion passes unanimously with the students voting with the majority, and we are on to our last motion of the evening. Consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed, election of teacher candidates, probationary. Is there a motion? Board Member Burke, seconded by Mr. Grant. Are there questions on the motion? Seeing none, there's no public comment on personnel items. We're going to move right into board discussion. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, please indicate whether you support approving the personnel items listed, election of teacher candidates, probationary. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair, Ms. Bondo,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better,
Yes.
Ms. Bryden,
Yes.
Ms. Lentz,
Yes.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Alzamili,
Yes.
and Chair Figdor.
Yes, so the personnel item is unanimously approved with our students voting with the majority. And we are ready to adjourn at a record time. It has indeed happened, except we have a workshop to follow. So no one leave, and I'm not giving you a break. So don't look at me and ask for a break. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Board Member Burke, seconded by Miss Bondo. All in favor, just with a show of hands. We are adjourned at 6:49 p.m.